YouTube battle community, Gerry and the Pacemakers fans, random people on the internet. My name is Giggens, and we are here today to talk about Gerry and the Pacemakers album, Ferry across the Mersey. This is the US copy of it. Different album cover, slightly different track list, but basically the same idea. This album came out maybe in May-ish of 1965. The album itself, I did think hit number 13 in the US and number 19 in the UK. As with a lot of these 60s groups these days, a lot of that stuff is kind of lost to the ages. It's hard to track down a lot of these exact dates, but the lead single track, Ferry Across the Mersey did hit the singles tracks at number 6, I think it peaked at, in the US, number 8 in the UK in March of that year. So I'm figuring this album probably came out April or May-ish of 65. The album itself is fantastic. It is the soundtrack to a movie that they made where they were featured with a few other bands like the Foremost, Cilla Black, and then a few other bands in the back here like the Black Knights, the Blackwells, Earl Royce, and the Olympics. So a lot of Liverpool groups were featured in this movie about Liverpool, playing the Cavern Club and, taking the boats, taking the, the ferry rides across the Mersey. And, I really like it. It's such a fun album. The songs on here are so full of energy and so full of that early Liverpool rock and roll feel. You think of bands like, the early Beatles stuff, these guys. It's got that flavor of the area. It's very regional sounding music, which I think works really well. These guys were all friends. Gerry and the Pacemakers and the Beatles, they knew each other from the Hamburg days. They were buddies. They were all hanging out together. Brian Epstein was their manager, produced by George Martin. The whole package there. This was released on Columbia Records in the UK. It was released on the United Artists label in America. Pretty common for movies at that time to get the soundtrack done through United Artists. The thing that I find most interesting about this album, though, is the mixing and labeling. So, right off the bat, this is a mono copy of the album, but the Ferry Across the Mersey and It's Gonna Be Alright, both of those songs, the versions of them are the stereo versions that were released in England, but these are mono versions of the stereo mix, I guess. If you play the original UK album version of both of those songs, the UK mono version of Ferry Across the Mersey, much more of a longer... the guitar is basically on its own for a while before the bongo sound of the drums come in. On the American one, they just kick off together. On It's Gonna Be Alright, mono version, UK, very long intro before it kicks in. Stereo version just kicks in. That's how it is here, just kicks in on the American mono copy. So, one of those mysteries for the ages, if you will. No idea. Anyways, It's Gonna Be Alright, like I just said, and I think that went to number 23 in May of 65. The movie, I'm trying to figure out when that came out. I'm guessing late 64 in England, early 65 in America. But yeah, the track listing also differs between the American copy and the British copy. On the American copy, you get bands like the Black Knights, Earl Royce and the Olympics, and the Blackwells. They're all featured in the movie. But then in the UK version, you get Cilla Black and the Foremost, and I think that makes for a slightly stronger record. I think the British version might actually be superior to this one. Also for the sequencing, starting the album off with It's Gonna Be Alright and ending with Ferry Across the Mersey. I think that's a better way to go, and then the sequencing throughout the rest of the album works really well. This one opens with Ferry Across the Mersey. It's very typical of that time. To put out an album and put the lead single up as the first track. That's what you wanted to hear anyway, so here it is. It works, This is interesting because the front of it says Ferry Across the Mersey. The spine says Ferry Across the Mersey. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see that. There you go. Ferry Across the Mersey. There is a more rare copy of this album with a white cover and a picture of them on it, which apparently was like a Capitol Records Record Club edition, which is apparently pretty hard to find. But yeah, the other bands on this album, like the Black Knights and the Blackwells, and Earl Royce and the Olympics, were very short-lived groups. They existed for maybe a couple of years, between like 63 and 66, had a couple of singles here and there, also produced by George Martin, for the most part. And the Black Knights actually they reformed in the late '90s. The other guys apparently didn't do so much after that, but so it's kind of an interesting like of the times, of the era, of the scene collection of an album and movie kind of show, who the groups were at that time. And they kind of put them together as an LP, which I think is a really cool idea. So with that, Ferry Across the Mersey is the first song on this album, and for me, always takes me back to being a kid. Growing up with the oldie station, when I was a kid, I grew up with Motown, the early '60s, British Invasion, doo-wop, '60s hard rock. So whenever I hear a song like "Ferry Across the Mersey," it instantly takes me back to being a kid in the car. It's got that nostalgic feel, even though it was written about a current thing at the time. Maybe they were writing about being kids too, but it just evokes memories in you. It evokes a nice feeling of warmth, of comfort, of emotion, and congeniality, and just knowing that like your family, your town is gonna back you up and support you no matter what. We don't care what your name is, boy. We'll never turn you away. That's a really cool line about like no matter where you go and what you do, we got your back. We're your hometown. Go make us proud. We're gonna be here when you come back. It's a very soothing main riff, and there's a great video of Gerry on TV, or on TV. It was on TV, but it's online. Or he's explaining how that riff came to him. That riff to him felt and sounded like the ferry boats going across the Mersey. That that kind of hit him. And there's a great story where he's like out on a date or something, and he ended up having to run to a payphone and call his mom, and he sang this line to her over the phone. I guess she hit play on the record on the little tape machine that he had to get that down, and so he can go write this song. Turned out to be a humongous hit for them, probably one of their most famous songs of all time. But it's just a great song. I mean, the vocals are very sweet. The padding drum sound throughout this thing is fantastic. And the vocal melody, it's such a sing-songy type of song. It sticks in your head, and it's got a very pleasant place, that exists in music. I think it's just a nice, pleasant song, and it's super catchy, and I love the way Gerry sings it. For me, the emotion that it evokes about going home's okay and leaving's okay, because when you go back, they're going to be ready for you. Very relatable song, very cool song. It's gonna be alright. So you get this nice little pleasant song, and then you jump headfirst into "It's Gonna Be Alright," which reminds me of "It Won't Be Long" with the Beatles. Like just opening an album with that, just like the UK copy opens with "It's Gonna Be Alright." It's just like headfirst. Here we go, rock and roll. Total high gear. I mean, the vocals on here, the wild drumming. One thing I want to give them credit for that I don't think they get enough credit for: Gerry and the Pacemakers were an incredibly tight band, having also done the same sort of circuit as the Beatles and Roy Storm and all those other bands in Hamburg in the early '60s and late '50s, and the Cavern Club and all that. They were used to playing for hours and hours and hours a night, and they developed a very, very tight rhythm section. These guys really knew what they were doing, and they knew how to play off each other well, and they knew their timing. They don't get enough credit for being a super tight group. And they were incredibly gifted musicians. The piano work, the drumming, the guitars, the vocals. They were up there with the Beatles right there for sure. For a few years there, they were neck and neck. But this song is so cool. The really articulate vocals, the classic lyrics about being with your special someone. It's a total shot in the arm of a track. It's got that total classic '60s British Invasion vibe. I love the acoustic guitar chugging along for the rhythm. Like I said, the drums are just going crazy on this song. The whole song just blasts through the wall, keeps your energy up, keeps it going. Fun dancing track. Why Oh Why is the next song on here. This one for me starts off with a bit of that "I Saw Her Standing There" kind of vibe, which I like a lot. But then it turns into its own thing. The piano riff that travels throughout this thing I think is fantastic, and the way that it kind of does a bit of a solo melody on its own in the verses, which I think is cool. The scream against the piano solo in the middle of the song is fantastic. It's, again, upbeat and exciting. You can tell these guys were like really hungry to make a fun song, and they pulled it off. Really gets the floor moving. One of those songs that just gets the feet going. I Got a Woman. So this is the song by the Black Knights. And, you know, if to the casual listener, you might not even notice that the song had changed. But if you play the album enough times, you'll realize the playing is different, the vocals are different, the style's different. Really cool rubbery guitar vibe on this one. You know, it's mostly like a group vocal kind of track, which is kind of fun to hear. It's too bad this group called it quits, because they really had some talent here. You know, for a debut single that this was for them, this is a really cool track. And to be put on this package and sent off to the States, it's a lot of exposure right there. It's really too bad they didn't last more than a couple of years. But it chugs along, it's catchy, it's full of hooks. I really like the cool ending and the upbeat chords throughout the whole thing. Fall in Love, this is a great song. Feeling sad? Go get your girl and fall in love somewhere. You know, really more wild drums on this one. I love the piano here, the jangly guitar. It's kind of a Byrds guitar inspiration on this one. And again, the breaks. They love doing the breaks. They'll sing a line, do a break, here's a drum fill, go back to singing again. They do that throughout this whole album, but they really do it well, and I like that feeling a lot. Classic Beatles ending on this one for sure, on that 6th up there. And then Think About Love. This song is cool. Heavy rocker, awesome vocal lines. More drums, more drum breaks throughout this one. That Hold You in My Arms part is a lot of fun. Classic Liverpool flavor here. I could totally picture the Beatles doing this one themselves. This could have been a single if you ask me. This one has all the makings of a single. Side 2, This Thing Called Love. This is a real catchy country flavored, just a hint of country in this one. But also a bit of a 50s feel. In the lyrics and vocals, and for me this is a nod to the Everly Brothers for sure. It's got that harmony, it's got that construction that sounds like an Everly Brothers song. It's pleasant, and it also reminds me of A World Without Love, another Beatles composition, but the weird thing about this song is the way it ends. It just kind of stops, just kind of an abrupt ending. It's kind of, and it's done. That's a bit weird, but the song itself is great. I enjoy it a lot. Baby You're So Good to Me, another song by the guys. I like the percussive bell work on this one a lot. Cool chord changes. I like the effective start and stop patterns, those breaks that I was talking about. They love it. Really warm vocal harmonies on this one too, but another classic track about letting the world know about how special your girl is. I mean, it's one of those early 60s type love songs. I love the Chuck Berry-ish guitar solo and the dancey beat. Excellent piano playing again. Again, I just need to reiterate, these guys were a really tight group and really, really talented musicians here. I'll Wait For You. This song is easily one of my favorite on the album. It's super animated drumming throughout this whole thing. Bouncy bass. You can really tell the bass apart on this one, which is great. Just touches of piano and a really exciting vocal from Gerry. And a bridge that lets him show off vocally. He goes a couple of places in the bridge vocally that he doesn't normally do. And I think that showcases his vocal talents really well. Just a classic track. I mean, overall, it's got that classic Beatles-ish Liverpool feel. What more can you want? Shake a Tail Feather, Earl Royce, and the Olympics. So this one's pretty cool here. I like the vocals on this one a lot. They're pretty fun, and the harmonies and the woos throughout this thing. A lot of vocal ad-libbing throughout this track. This band could have gone places too, I think, if they had stuck around for a little while and developed more as writers. I think they would have had potential to go somewhere. Really intricate guitar strumming throughout this thing. Overall, just a cool track. She's the Only Girl for Me. This is the last song by Gerry and the Pacemakers on the album. And it's a good song, but it's a bit of a somber one. It's kind of a drag that this is like the last time you hear them on the album. This should have been somewhere earlier in the record, I think. But you know, it's about your girl leaving you and how you still have feelings for her, and she's always going to be that one, even though she's gone. Interesting construction on this song. Definitely a more somber track. I could see this being on Beatles for Sale with no problem. And totally John Lennon singing it, hands down. But yeah, nice jangly guitars on this one as well. And then Why Don't You Love Me by the Blackwells. Hey, a harmonica. That's new. Completely void of harmonica on the rest of the album. The vocals on this are totally out of the Buddy Holly playbook, if you ask me. A touch of the Everleys throughout, but cool breaks that kind of shake this thing up and kind of keep it on its toes. And these guys must have been a lot of fun live at that time. But here's the back cover. So you got a picture of the guys, the track listing, and then, you know, Brian Epstein presents, all that kind of stuff. Here's a close-up of the front cover, so you get a better picture of the guys at the cavern. And I'll show you the label here. It's on the United Artists label. And side 2. So again, this is a mono copy, but if anyone knows why, you know, the mono version in America of some of the singles is reflective of the stereo version of some of the singles in the UK, unless they were just taken from that and then made into a mono mix or something, that's confusing. So overall, though, I really, really enjoyed this album. I've been playing the heck out of it. I've had it for years, but kind of rediscovering it was a lot of fun. You know, and they had some other great songs too. How Do You Do It? I Like It, all that kind of stuff. A lot of fun. It's truly sad that they didn't keep going and keep growing as the rest of the bands did. You know, a lot of the Liverpool groups, basically like Cilla Black and the Beatles, they were kind of like only a couple that really, really kept going throughout the years. But I was thinking about it. I was like, you know what? Could you imagine a White Album era version of Gerry and the Pacemakers? Like if they had gone super hard and then psychedelic and then made their own Abbey Road, like what kind of world would that be like? Because if you look back, you know, the Beatles were doing similar stuff to this too, like, you know, with the Beatles, Please Please Me, Hard Day's Night, you know, all that kind of poppy stuff. And then just 4 years later, they're making the White Album, like, which is a complete departure from what they had done in the early years. So it would be interesting to see what this band could have become had they kept going. But for what it is and for what it's worth, this album is easily a 8 or 9 out of 10 for me, hands down. I think I might like the British one better because Cilla Black is on it, and I just love her vocals. She's one of the best. She was one of the best singers of all time. She's absolutely fantastic. Her version of Anyone Who Had a Heart, holy crap, that's a great song. But yeah, that's it. I'm going to go with an 8 or 9 out of 10 on this one. And that's it. My name is Giggens. This has been Album Reviews with Gerry and the Pacemakers, Ferry across the Mersey, musical director George Martin. That's it. Let me know what you guys think of this album. If you like Gerry and the Pacemakers, we could do some more of them. So thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.